And with that sound, it is 10 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. Wrong. God, 4 words into the fucking show and I mess it up. It is 10 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast of the United States. It is 0500 GMT. Thank you for joining cBas After Dark. It's a very special show for reasons I will get into. Well, I'll just tell you, it's no big secret. It's my birthday. It's actually not my birthday yet. We're going into my birthday, but just mentioning it in the Trekkie chat room had somebody say, "Oh, you're an Aries with a fuck shit rising," and so that made me play my favorite clip, and it's my favorite quote from actually episode 1 of The Big Bang Theory, which is you know, it's Sheldon Cooper's line. Okay, now I've lost it. Hold on a second here. The Sheldon Cooper line is, and he says something like, "I'm a Sagittarius. That probably tells you everything you need to know." And Sheldon says, "Yes, it tells you that you participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality." Again, it tells us that you participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality. It's genius, and it goes by in such a flash that you almost can miss the sheer power of that one sentence in episode 1 of The Big Bang Theory. You participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality. My mom has often said she doesn't see how actor Jim Parsons even is able to kind of utter the lines that they give him because they're so like multisyllabic and long. I mean, the lines themselves are long. The words within the lines are long. And, you know, you combine that shit, they give him some amazing lines to say, and he rattles them off with apparent precision. Of course, we always see the best possible take of any of that. It's Nerd News Monday. Nerd News Monday, one of my favorite things. And, of course, going into my birthday, I feel like, hey, what the fuck? I'm not going to say which birthday it is. It's not important which birthday it is. I will say this. It is a milestone birthday, meaning it ends in a 0. We don't need to say which one it is, but we'll suffice it to say that it's 20. And it's an anniversary of my 20th birthday. But you know, here's the funny thing. As I said in the Trekkie chat room earlier tonight, milestone birthdays are not nearly as fun as they sound as you continue to get on. I'm not one of those people that gets fucked up and morose on their birthday, so we're not going to have that. We're going to have a good time tonight, especially now that my friend Wooble in the Trekkie chat room said something about, "Oh, you're an Aries with fuck shit rising," or whatever the fuck, you know, Zodiac people say. That got me quoting The Big Bang Theory episode 1 with that thing I was just talking about. And then that got me into watching clips, quick little clips on YouTube that debunk astrology. I mean, with precision and with simplicity and clarity and suaveness, like whoosh, it just slices right fucking through it. I kind of feel like that's where I want to start. But let me just tell you what's coming up in case you're able to stay for the whole show. Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on tape, thank you. This is the phone number, by the way, 310-776-Coons. That's 310-776-5869 in case you want to call. Or just tweet me at Sebastian Coons right here on the bottom of the screen. We got news about the creation of actual antimatter from the folks at CERN in, where is that, Scandinavia somewhere? Dublin, Ireland? No, it's not Dublin. It's Norway, Sweden, or Finland, and I always forget where. Debunking the Zodiac, creation, the expansion of the universe is slower than we thought. That's a paper, I think, that was published actually from the University of Arizona, where my college degrees are from. Star Trek at 50 and William Shatner's take on it. Edward Snowden's take on whether your passwords are any good or not. Here's a hint, they're probably not. And, of course, your calls here, if anybody calls. I mean, don't feel like you have to call. I'm prepared to fill the hour just by yammering myself. Let's go ahead and get to the Zodiac thing. That's where I want to start because I found 2 good clips that are fucking spectacular. The first one is actually kind of how do I say this? It's an edited piece. There's several pieces, and in fact, it's a whole bunch of scientists kind of all edited together in a very good way. Carl Sagan, Richard Dawkins, Bill Nye the Science Guy, James Randi, who I have enormous respect for, and Mike Tyson. No, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the guy who does the new Cosmos show. All of them are stellar minds. All of them are very well grounded in, you know, not just reality. Here's the thing. I will tell you this before we get started. I watched, you know how the YouTube now has a thing that plays next automatically unless you hit cancel. At the end of the Astrology Debunked clip, up came this thing, Evolution, the greatest lie ever told. Evolution debunked by White Rabbit. And I got fucking creeped out. Not just because, I mean, you know, the sort of places that the religious whack jobs and conspiracy theorists go is truly disturbing at times. I have to burp. Oh, that was not it. There it is. Brought to you by Belch Beer. Evolution debunked. Right. This video, I mean, it was about the Illuminati and about brainwashing and about how schools and society is meant to, I mean, it went all these, the world is controlled by a bunch of satanic something or others who are trying to create a one world government, more importantly, a one world religion. And the one world religion is science, and then science uses evolution. I mean, it was on and on and on in this weird chain of thoughts. There's like, I mean, I would be creeped out if the sun was up, but when the sun is down and it's quiet in here, it's like, put the Big Bang Theory on, something funny. So, I mean, that's sort of where I'm starting the show from emotionally, as a creeped out perspective from some fucked up bullshit that came on by accident. I do want to watch that video later, but that got me thinking about evolution versus science and how the religious people who disbelieve in evolution think it's just, you know, science is just modern religion, and it's really all the same. It's just a system of beliefs. And I'm like, no. These people have not studied epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge. The theory of knowledge is, you know, a branch of philosophy that is, you know, there's study of numbers, number theory. There is study of music theory. There's a study of knowledge theory. And one of the things about science is, I mean, obviously it's not faith-based, but more importantly, it uses evidence to, you know, create premises and conclusions. Science knowledge gets better. It literally evolves as more information is revealed, where, you know, faith is challenged and or disproven the more new information we get, empirical information. So to say science and religion, it's just two different apples in the same barrel. No, one of them gets at the truth. It might take a long time. But what was the phrase? If any method of truth-telling works, science works. Guaranteed. If any method of discerning the truth, learning the truth. Now, there's people who are going to say, oh, truth is all relative, and you know, we can't ever really know anything, blah, blah, blah. I'm not interested in having a discussion with you people, because that's literally something I can't even wrap my brain around. That's sort of, I mean, I don't want to call you damn hippies, but seriously, that is not even, that is sort of trying to defuse having a conversation from the get-go. You're trying to cut the whole conversation off at the ankles and not allow us to explore what makes a theory, what makes knowledge, what makes knowledge different from beliefs and all that stuff. So, you know, evolution is kind of a theory born out of science. No one's saying, I mean, nobody really is saying it's fact, except that you can see evolution examples in many different theories throughout the years. And I don't know about Ray Kurzweil and this guy in the freaky video I watched at the beginning. Ray Kurzweil, who's like apparently an executive at Google. I didn't know that. I thought he was just kind of a futurist and theorist. I was not aware of him being involved with Google at all. But one of the things this video said was the singularity, the merging of man and machine, and ooh, it's coming, and we're all going to be Borg. He didn't say the Borg thing, but it was like, God damn, these religious freak jobs are scary in a truly fundamental way. Like, it is really terrifying at times. But enough of that. Let's get to Astrology Debunked. This is the fun stuff. I like this video a lot because, as I said, I'm spitting all over my computer. It goes through 5 different really clear thinkers who use their own ways of kind of poking holes in what is an easily debunkable thing, astrology, right? The delusion that the sun's apparent position at the time of your birth relative to arbitrarily defined constellations somehow affects your personality. But more importantly, the audio is all over the place. Whoever produced this video, as a former radio guy, it fucking pisses me off, because it's like, okay, Carl Sagan, very peaceful, very dramatic, right? And then we've got Richard Dawkins in his British prim and proper voice. And then we got Bill Nye, the science guy. And then we've got James Randi's audio is way down here. And then all of a sudden, Mike Tyson is, not Mike Tyson, why do I keep saying that? Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's yelling into a microphone and it's flanging all over the place. And the needles are hitting the peg so hard that they're bending. Like, I mean, all of a sudden we go from quiet James Randi to loud Neil deGrasse Tyson. And as a former audio guy, I was like, can we not balance the audio a little? So I'm going to try and balance it here for you. Enough blabbing. It's already 9 minutes into the show. Let's watch this video. I'm pretty sure because of the editing and the way it's put together, we're not going to get in trouble and have it shut down. If it should happen to be shut down, I have other places I can go. But let's watch this. Switching over to it here. It's a good video. I hope an ad does not come on first. Let's enjoy the Astrology Debunked. Sagan, Dawkins, Nye, Randy, Tyson. Mike Tyson at the end, of course.
What is all this astrology business?
all right. Stop. I meant to hit pause. What is? I used to get really a lot of shit from my friends for my Carl Sagan impersonation, and I admit it's not. I actually think it's pretty good. But the thing about impersonating Carl Sagan is everybody does it, so it's hardly new or interesting. But what is this business? You know, it's like, goddamn, he's so funny.
What is all this astrology business? Fundamentally, it's the contention that which constellations the planets are in at the moment of your birth profoundly influences your future. A few thousand years ago, the idea developed that the motions of the planets determine the fates of kings, dynasties, empires. Astrologers studied the motions of the planets and asked themselves what had happened last time that, say, Venus was rising in the constellation of the Goat. Maybe something similar would happen this time as well.
Okay.
Astrology is a primitive belief system.
This is Richard
made
Dawkins.
into elaborate pseudoscience. It arrogantly makes humans the focal point of the universe. The movement of planets is supposed to signify petty developments in our career or love life.
Hey, nice ass.
It was developed in the 2nd century AD by the philosopher Claudius Ptolemy and has not moved on since, despite the discovery of new planets and despite a shift in the Earth's rotational axis that has thrown Ptolemy's zodiac out by 23 degrees.
Okay, did you catch that? Ptolemy's zodiac for 2,000 years ago is way off, 23 degrees off. That will return in Bill Nye's clip coming up here.
You probably know your sign, or do you? Try this. Wait for your birthday, then stay up all night and watch where the sun rises. It will pass in front of one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. They say I'm a Sagittarius. So on my birthday, you might expect the sun to rise in the constellation Sagittarius. And it did, 2,000 years ago. The Babylonians made all this up. But it doesn't now. In the last 2,000 years, the Earth has wobbled like a top. So now on my birthday, the sun rises in Scorpio, not Sagittarius. So maybe you'd have to be a Capricorn to be a Sagittarius, and Scorpios would have to be Libras. See, astrologers are off one full sign. In 2,000 more years, they'll be off 2 signs. But they don't seem to care. So in these reflective moments, I ask myself, am I a fun-loving Sagittarius or a sexy Scorpio?
That's very funny. One of the things that my friend Wooble said in the Star Trek chat that kind of prompted all this was, you know, something about it's so old. Somebody had to organize this stuff. It's so old that this is why she like respects it or believes it or whatever, likes it, I guess, is that it's so old. Therefore, it's to be like respected or believed or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I don't know how you argue with that sort of logic, if you want to call it logic, but there's not a lot you can argue with there. Continuing on with the video here. More Sagan.
Here, look at this. Here's 2 different newspapers published in the same city on the same day. Let's see what they do about astrology. Suppose you are a Libra that is born between September 23rd and October 22nd. According to the astrologer for the New York Post, compromise will help ease tension. Well, maybe. It's sort of vague. According to the New York Daily News' astrologer, demand more of yourself. Also vague, but also pretty different. It's interesting that these predictions are not predictions. They tell you what to do. They don't say what's going to happen. They're consciously designed to be so vague that it could apply to anybody.
Okay, I really like what he said there. They're not predictions. They're telling you what to do. This is not a prediction. This is a prescription or something.
And they disagree with each other.
It's the same thing. It's the same reason why I don't like Chinese fortune cookies anymore, is because they're now saying things that are not predictions or, you know, anything other than people rely on you for knowledge or whatever the hell. Wisdom.
For the astrology test, each student was given a detailed horoscope.
Okay, here's James Randi. Each student given a detailed horoscope in this class.
It was drawn up by a professional based on information they had supplied about when and where they were born.
The funny thing about this is this happened in my psychology class. Like Psych 101, they do it.
I asked the students to grade them for accuracy on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the most accurate. How many gave it a 1? Let's see a show of hands.
No ones.
2, 3.
Didn't look like any 3s.
4.
Okay.
5.
A few 4s and mostly 5s.
So we scored pretty highly with this then.
These were really good horoscopes, apparently.
You've got your horoscopes right in front of you. Take them in your hand like this and hand them over your shoulder to the person behind you. Okay, everybody? And the guy at the end down there, you'll have to come up to the front because these people in the front don't have one now. Okay? Everybody change around. Everybody's got to open up somebody else's horoscope and read it carefully, please.
Can you tell what's about to happen? Of course you can. Oh my God. It's someone else's horoscope.
Oh my God!
It's the same.
They had all received the same horoscope.
But they all rated it highly. They all thought it was a 4 or a 5 in accuracy and relevance to their lives.
We selected 20 people at random. We asked them to read that week's horoscope for Capricorn, but as a test, we said it applied to their own star sign.
Back to Richard Dawkins here.
This should fit just Capricorn and not the rest.
Yeah, these are only
What
Capricorns
actually happened?
that should find this accurate.
Yeah, maybe. To be honest, I feel there's some Mercury energy this week because there's a lot of arguments around and a lot of bad vibes.
Capricorn? No, Sagittarius.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. What a load of junk.
What a load of junk.
Me as much as to the next person.
But yeah, well, in a way, yeah, I am. I'm going on a flamenco course in Spain.
That isn't necessarily pertaining to me this week. It's pertaining to me generally.
Kind of rubbish.
The same number of people agreed that the horoscope was accurate for them as disagreed, and similar results are found with proper large-scale experiments.
Okay.
Technically, all but one of our group should have disagreed, namely our only Capricorn.
Yeah, so the only Capricorn they talked to should have been the only one that agreed.
Not at this moment, no.
But it doesn't apply to her. At least not at this moment.
Astrology can be tested by the lives of twins. There are many real cases like this. One twin is killed in childhood in, say, a riding accident or is struck by lightning, but the other lives to a prosperous old age. Suppose that happened to me. My twin and I would be born in precisely the same place, and within minutes of each other, exactly the same planets would be rising at our births. If astrology were valid, how could we have such profoundly different fates?
Okay, I'm going to hit pause here and try to back the audio off just a smidge, because this is the one that's Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he says something that I actually did not know coming up here. So this is actually very interesting.
A classroom of people, a group of people who are believers. And don't do what they want. This is what you do. Go to the horoscope that day. Pluck one at random. Read it to that audience and say, whose horoscope did I just read? 2/3 of the hands will go up, okay? Which we know is not how that's supposed to work. It should really be 1/12 if it had any sense at all. That's the simplest test that I know to demonstrate to someone that it's just bunk, other than the rational arguments that you might spend time offering, like where the sun was when you were born doesn't match where it was 2,000 years ago when this got laid out, and the fact that there are 14 constellations in the zodiac, not 12.
There it is.
One of them is Ophiuchus. Any Ophiuchans here? Okay? Some people know they're Ophiuchans. The sun, after passing through Scorpio, spends more time in Ophiuchus than it did in Scorpius. So if you thought you were Scorpion, you're probably Ophiuchian, and all Ophiuchans and Scorpions are currently Librans. That's how that plays out.
How could the rise of Saturn possibly be a signifier for something that's going on physiologically in a person's body? The position of planets in the signs of the zodiac.
This is what you keep coming back to ask me. How could it possibly work?
Yes.
And I've told you, I don't know. It's a deep, dark mystery.
How could it possibly work? How could the rising of Mars at the moment of my birth affect me, then or now? I was born in a closed room. Light from Mars couldn't get in. The only influence of Mars which could affect me was its gravity. But the gravitational influence of the obstetrician was much larger than the gravitational influence of Mars. Mars is a lot more massive, but the obstetrician was a lot closer.
I believe astrology misleads the public, denies scientific progress, and belittles our universe.
It's true.
There's a far richer way of looking at the cosmos. Astronomy is a triumph of the human intellect, a real science, constantly enriched by new evidence.
The desire to be connected with the cosmos reflects a profound reality. We are connected, not in the trivial ways that the pseudoscience of astrology promises, but in the deepest ways.
I gotta love, I've said this a lot. I actually love Carl Sagan and love the original Cosmos show. In the way, it kind of creeps me out in the way that, like, In Search Of used to creep me out as a kid, or Unsolved Mysteries. Like I talked about, what was that? Did I talk about that on Media Watch Wednesday last week? I talked about it on one of the shows last week, where Unsolved Mysteries, In Search Of, and Secrets and Mysteries, the one hosted by Devin from Knight Rider, really good shit. I was gonna go on and tell you and play actually the full Richard Dawkins clip, because there's like a 9-minute clip on here where Richard Dawkins talks about it, and it's really good too. Maybe if there's time at the end, we'll go back to it. There's actually nerd news to talk about that I want to bring to your attention. So attention, please. Let me wait for the old notepad here to populate, and while I do that, I can tell you that you can call me and yell at me, or tweet me and yell at me at any time. The number and Twitter account are on your screen at this time. Sebastian Kuntz, 310-776-Kuntz. All right, let me start with this one. Antimatter. It's not just part of what powers the Starship Enterprise. No, nay, I say, nay. Oh, you know what I had up here that I actually could have just played instead of saying it? Hold on, let me switch over to it just real fast. This will make you smile and laugh. I've actually quoted it now 3 times, I think, during this show, but hopefully this won't get me shut down. It's only 25 seconds long. From The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon debunks astrology in about a second and a half.
That's probably enough about us. So tell us about you.
Me? Okay. I'm a Sagittarius, which probably tells you way more than you need to know.
Yes, it tells us that you participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality.
Participate in the what?
Yeah, she didn't even get it. Like, so, I mean, that's brilliant right there. Not only the line itself and its construction and sort of, but the delivery. There's a lot to like in both the delivery and the writing of that. Okay, let's get to antimatter. From CERN, the CERN website here, antimatter experiment has produced the first beam of antihydrogen. Let's switch over to this screen, because holy fucking shit, we actually created a beam of antihydrogen here. From the folks at CERN, accelerating science. The Asakusa experiment, ASACUSA, at CERN has succeeded for the first time in producing a beam of antihydrogen atoms. In a paper published by Nature Communications, and the link is here, the ASACUSA Asakusa collaboration reports the unambiguous detection of 80 antihydrogen atoms 2.7 meters downstream of their production, where the perturbing influence of the magnetic fields used initially to produce the anti-atoms is small. This result is a significant step towards precise hyperfine papers like this get real tongue-tying really fast. The result is a significant step toward precise hyperfine spectroscopy of antihydrogen atoms. Primordial antimatter so far has never been observed in the universe, and its absence remains a major scientific enigma. Nevertheless, it is possible to produce significant amounts of antihydrogen in experiments at CERN by mixing anti-electrons or positrons and low-energy antiprotons produced by the antiproton decelerator. Are you lost already? I gotta admit, I'm kind of a scientifically nerdy kind of guy. I like to. I'm not a scientist, never was. I have one science degree, whatever. It's not really related to physics at all. It's nowhere near physics. Frankly, I barely passed Physics 101, so I'm not necessarily qualified to weigh in on this much other than reading the article. But you know, you get two or three paragraphs into it, and it's like, holy fucking shit. The spectra of hydrogen and antihydrogen are predicted to be identical, so any tiny difference between them would immediately open a window to new physics and could help in solving the antimatter mystery. With its single proton accompanied by just one electron, hydrogen is the simplest existing atom, so that's easily graspable, right? One proton, one electron. That's the easiest, simplest existing atom, and one of the most precisely investigated and best understood systems in modern physics. Thus, if you're a Star Trek fan, you know what I say when I say one moon circles, right? The Nightmares episode of TNG. Thus, comparisons of antihydrogen and hydrogen atoms constitute one of the best ways to perform highly precise tests of matter-antimatter symmetry. Matter and antimatter annihilate immediately when they meet. So aside from creating antihydrogen, one of the challenges is to keep anti-atoms away from ordinary matter. They do that in Star Trek with the magnetic containment field. To do so, experiments take advantage of antihydrogen's magnetic properties, which are similar to hydrogen's, and they use very strong, non-uniform magnetic fields, just like in Star Trek, to trap anti-atoms long enough to study them. However, the strong magnetic field gradients degrade these spectra. I could go on and on. But essentially, here's the paper in Nature Communications. I'll just click on it, so we'll see what that looks like. Good old nature.com. I mean, this is, you want to talk about peer-reviewed science, this is peer-reviewed science, probably at its best. And look at all the peers here at the top. But yeah, here's the abstract in one paragraph. Antihydrogen, a positron bound to an antiproton, is the simplest anti-atom. Its counterpart, hydrogen, is one of the most precisely investigated, blah, blah, blah. High-resolution comparisons of both systems provide sensitive tests of CPT symmetry. What's CPT? I don't know. The most fundamental symmetry in the standard model of elementary particle physics. Any measured difference would point to CPT violation and thus to new physics. So they're trying to figure out if what we understand as physics is right. And again, getting back to the whole concept of a theory of knowledge, learning truth. What's the truth of the universe? How do things work in reality, in real science? And, you know, there's people who say, we can never know, and fuck you people, because that's cutting off the argument at the ankles, like I said. You have to try to know, and I mean, you're not going to necessarily get it right, and that's what new physics means, is we may find new data, new evidence that points toward the possibility that what we could call physics now isn't really true, you know, or at least is partially incorrect. That's probably a better way to say it. Not it's not true physics, but you know, we didn't get this right. We didn't get this right. Maybe we got this right. Maybe not this. So, I mean, that's what I have intellectual respect for. That's what I appreciate on a fundamental level. And that's what the folks who are religious, or even sort of the crazier, we can't know anything, we can't discuss anything. Maybe when I say the number 2, what you think of as the number 2 is not the same thing as what I think of when I say, so we can't even have any mathematics, because maybe what you think of a 2 is not what 2-ness is to me, the concept of 2-ness. I spent a lot of time in number theory. And there was a fucking guy in fucking number theory class who was like, maybe what I think of as 2 is what you think of as blue. So how can we ever, okay, I mean, you're a fucking asshole because you're not even trying to have, I mean, I get that there is the question, and that's a question for the other class, not number theory class. That is a question for the theory of knowledge class, the epistemology class, right? How can anybody know anything? How can we possibly, you know, agree on anything? How can we know if what you think of is the same thing? There is a place for that, but the place for that is not number theory class. And if you're going to cut that off at the ankles, then you're not going to be, you're not participating in a legitimate way. You're right. You're kind of being disruptive to the point of being an asshole. That's why I call those people assholes. They're assholes. All right. Let's move on. I love that anti-hydrogen story very, very much. And it was what I really was going to lead the nerd news with until this birthday astrology shit happen. Hey, let's talk about Star Trek. Fuck yeah, it's my birthday. I can do what I want. Well, there's actually Star Trek nerd news to talk about. Moving to cinemablend.com is the website we're going to next. First, back to the CERN thing, because replacing the Nature website will be Cinema Blend. William Shatner has an idea for a 50th anniversary episode of Star Trek. Really? Well, all right. And I will say this. I shit a lot, and I take enormous pride and pleasure in shitting on J.J. Abrams and his Star Trek reboot, all right? And the people who like it. The people who like it are clearly people with no taste. And the people who... that's probably a broader brush than I like to paint. The truth is, the J.J. Abrams movies do not honor the franchise, in the words of my good friend Trunks. And they kind of disregard some fundamental shit about the regular Star Trek universe just for the purpose of, creating an action movie where running equals action and yelling equals drama and explosions equal explosions. And the more explosions we have, the more exciting of an action fucking movie it is. And these are people who are, essentially, should I just dangle my keys in front of you to entertain you? Because that seems like it's all it takes. But I also pair that, my hatred, my sheer pure hatred of the celluloid diarrhea that J.J. Abrams puts out, with this important asterisk. I don't hate all new Star Trek. I guarantee you, and I can prove it. The way I can prove it, that I don't hate new Star Trek, is there is fan-produced Star Trek out there. Now, is it clearly fan-produced? Yes. Is it original? Is it television quality or feature film quality? Absolutely not. But the stories are interesting and compelling, and frankly, they're dealing with the same. In fact, they have technology with After Effects and Avid Cinema and Final Cut, Photoshop, and all those things that even the filmmakers, the original series creators in the 60s, did not have. So in some ways, yeah, the wardrobe looks cheap, and the Spock ears don't look really good, and there's a lot that they could do better with a lot more money. But these are fans for whom Star Trek is in their heart. Honoring the franchise of Star Trek is truly something they're trying to do, and it shows, okay? And the stories are good, and that's what Star Trek always was. They didn't have the money for excellent ship models and for highly expensive tech. I mean, it was a very expensive show to produce at the time, but they didn't have the money for that. And I think they rightfully focused mostly on having good stories. And as Leonard Nimoy said, and I forget which documentary or which special feature of which DVD, Leonard Nimoy at one time said that the best episodes of Star Trek, I think it was in Star Trek 4, because that's when he was being interviewed, and he was applying it also to Star Trek 4. The best episodes of Star Trek really didn't have a villain or a bad guy or a person to be defeated. They had a problem that needed to be overcome. So you want to look at the probe in Star Trek 4, the V'ger in Star Trek 1, a situation that needed solving that wasn't killing the bad guy, which is essentially all TV was in the 50s and 60s, right? So, the good story is what is at its core. It's why Star Trek 1 fails in a very large way, even though Star Trek 1 is one of my favorite movies. One of the problems is it doesn't have a great plot, and the plot it does have is essentially a recycled TOS episode. But let's look more, enough of me blabbing. Let's look at the 50th anniversary proposed Star Trek episode from the brain of William Shatner. Star Trek originally premiered on network TV back in '66. In the time since, Star Trek has put together numerous film and TV projects and has become a cultural icon. Next year, Star Trek turns 50. And lead William Shatner recently revealed he has an idea for a special episode of Star Trek. He also mentioned he's already pitched his new idea to Sci-Fi. Quote, I went to the Sci-Fi Network, which hasn't given me their final answer, but I broached the idea that the 50th anniversary show would be about the ideas the Star Trek dramatized. That's nice and vague, isn't it? Speaking at a 2015 Fan Expo in Vancouver, Shatner went on to say Star Trek made a name for itself by tackling the issues of its time. That's what I was just talking about. Everything from racial tensions in that episode where the guy was half black and half white, and he was fighting with the guy that was half white and half black. He also mentions various other themes the show addressed and wants to see a potential anniversary special tackle those in an hour-and-a-half long program. Fuck you with this. Shut your face. Obviously, none of this is set in stone yet, but it's nice to see Shatner is thinking about a potential anniversary special. He's not the only one. The internet has been abuzz with ideas for what Star Trek might do when it turns 50. Ranging from big conventions to a new TV series, it's especially interesting to hear Shatner actually pitch an interesting idea to Sci-Fi, and even if it comes to nothing, if you don't know British English. And a deal with sci-fi may not be as strange as it seems. Shatner has worked with the cable network before, it says. They're talking about Star Trek 3 with Simon Pegg writing and Justin Lin from the Fast and the Furious director at the helm. Okay, I mean, that does not... The fact that J.J. Abrams is not directing is a plus. The guy that did Fast and Furious does not impress me in the slightest. Although the creative team is now settled, Paramount earlier had some trouble getting the blockbuster. Fuck that. In the meantime, it seems that at least those close to the Star Trek franchise are at least thinking about other ways to celebrate the big anniversary. Let's just play this. How long is this? 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
So I started thinking about a 50th anniversary show. And I thought, what kind of show? You got the actors. What do you do for a 50th? It's never happened in show business before. In the entertainment industry, there's never been anything like Star Trek. 50 years later, I'm talking to you, I'm saying Star Trek is coming out of my mouth the way it came out 50 years ago. And you're all saying Star Trek, and kids come up. I said, I'm watching Star Trek. You're watching Star Trek? So I have been going to a number. I went to the Sci-Fi Channel, who hasn't given me their final answer. But I broached the idea that the 50th anniversary show would be about the ideas that Star Trek dramatized. Race relations, where we had that kiss. But I was thinking of the one where Frank Gorshin was half black and half white.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot that was Frank Gorshin, who is one of those two actors.
And he hated this guy who was half black and half white, black on his right hand side. It was the opposite. And the stupidity of hating somebody because of their color. So it was like a great science fiction story. Those stories abound in Star Trek. And I thought, if you could take, say, race relationships, and do an 8-minute capsule of race relationships in this country, the effect that those shows had on the public, people who were affected by seeing those shows in terms of their opinion about race. So every idea, not every, but say 8, 10 ideas that computer warfare, where the country never knew the slaughter and the blood and the guts of war, but it was a war by computers, and then that's the way they fought their wars. But they never knew of the horror of war. So isn't that the way we're living? And so each one of those ideas for an hour and a half show, dramatizing and setting each of those ideas in its context, I thought would make a great 50th, and of course the actors and all that, but the thrust of it would be the ideas. I thought that would be a good idea. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. How about it? I mean, I will say this. I don't know that Shatner, I have enormous love for him. I think he's America's greatest treasure. I've seen his show live, not just him talking at a convention, right? But the William Shatner show where he talks about his life and, the sad discovery of his wife, at the bottom of the pool, and sad stories of, his life with horses and stuff like that. The guy is like a powerhouse. And by the way, if you love him as Captain Kirk, God save my life. The atheist God that I don't believe in. There is one place where Shatner is better than he ever was in Star Trek. He was Captain Kirk through and through, and near and dear to my heart. But when he became dopey guy Denny Crane in Boston Legal Show, so help me God, seek that show out. It's a show that should have gone on longer, in my opinion. Like, it was so fucking hilarious. If you don't like legal dramas, it's probably not for you. If you ever saw Ally McBeal, it's by the guy who created that. There's some people I know who don't like legal shows. There's some people I know who don't like James Spader. There's some people, there's always a reason to sort of not like it. But if you could just sample the first 5 or 6 episodes of the show from ABC television, 2006 to 2011, it was called Boston Legal. Shatner is genius as Denny Crane. Cadmus Bergen, the great Murphy Brown from the 80s, comes in as one of the other major name attorneys in this law firm, and they kind of had a love affair, and Shatner's kind of doughy and dopey, as I said. Any role like that where the actor's physicality plays into and reinforces, like Denny Crane was a role written for Shatner in his 70s or 80s or however old he was and is. Like, I mean, truly hilarious, truly brilliant, touching at times, soaring at times, all the great stuff that TV needs to be. Different, funny, serious, and not stupid, and not, respecting of the audience, if that makes any sense. Like, I mean, respectful of their intellect and their emotional intellect, and sort of, touching them without being patronizing. And I mean, I can go on and on about Boston Legal, but do seek that show out. I wish there was a channel on our little Trekkie place here that would play it, because anybody who loves Shatner as I do will see and revere that show probably as much as I will. I really say that. All right, other nerd news. The expansion of the universe. What could be bigger than Star Trek? The universe. Let's look at V'ger. Well, not V'ger. Why did I say V'ger? I don't know. Because V'ger's knowledge has spanned the limits of this universe and had to evolve. We're coming full circle here. Evolution, the universe. All right, let's look at this next story. Let me get the website here first of all, because I did not have it in my little fucking how you have to have the website in your, what am I trying to say? Your cut and paste queue or whatever that thing is. I had that website in there. Let's do this. From the University of Arizona, the folks at the Christian Science Monitor, which I always thought that was weird. Like, I felt like I shouldn't like that newspaper because of the name Christian Science in there. It's like, wait, seriously? It's almost like the Watchtower or something like that. But it's actually a pretty legit newspaper for the most part. This is as of 1 day ago. Researchers from the U of A, where I graduated from, have detected variation in a kind of supernovae used as a standard measure of distance, suggesting the acceleration of the expansion of the universe might be lower. So wrapping your brain around that, what does it say? It's generally believed, I think, by scientists in the know that the universe is expanding. What this says is it's expanding, and it's expanding faster and faster and faster. It's accelerating as it expands. The expansion is accelerating, but the rate of acceleration is lower than previously thought, is what I get from that. Let's just read. Ever since the Big Bang, the universe has been expanding. In the 90s, cosmologists observing a special type of star explosion concluded the rate of the universe's expansion was actually accelerating, as though some unseen force were pushing the universe outward. I always said was pushing it outward or sucking it inward, right? Now a team of scientists have detected a variation in the brightness of type 1a supernovae. That's the kind of star they were looking at. One that suggests the acceleration may not be as much as previously thought. If this is true, then this unseen force, now called dark energy, may not be as abundant as they first thought. Up until now, it was believed that all of these stars and supernovae are equally bright at their peak luminosity, making them useful for measuring distances across the universe. In the 90s, these scientists independently determined that these supernova were actually fainter than would be expected if the universe's expansion were uniform. Thus, they concluded that the expansion of the universe was accelerating. All right, that makes sense. They got the 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics. But now the team, led by an astronomer right up the street from me, has found that there are actually two subclasses of type 1a supernova. Using data from the Hubble and NASA's Swift spacecraft, this guy and his team found variations in the light emitted by different supernovae, particularly in the UV wavelengths, with some emitting light shifted red, some shifted blue. The press release likened it to buying several 100-watt light bulbs at the hardware store, only to discover they vary in brightness. All right, that's the kind of little sort of simile, I guess, or metaphor or whatever that I can get behind, because it's pretty understandable. One of the things, and this is now deviating from the topic there for a sec, sort of from a more informational, communicational standpoint. I was a journalist for many years, a broadcaster. One of the things I felt like it was my responsibility to do was to be understandable, right? to try and tell the story in a clear way. I mean, that's one of the things they drill into you. Journalism 101, clear, concise, complete, right? Who, what, when, where, why, all that shit. Very basic journalism tenets. Be clear, be concise, and be complete as much as possible, as often as possible. So when you're talking about being understandable, being clear, stuff like this is not easy to report for general audiences, certainly. If you're a nerd in a science fiction way, or you're otherwise science-minded or scientifically, aligned, it's one thing. But for a general audience, where, let's face it, the saps in the crowd are not always 100-watt light bulbs, to use this analogy, you got to find a way to sort of dumb it down. And I hate to say dumb it down, because that's sort of not the real truth. That's short of the real truth. Usually, if you could draw a clear word picture, and being understandable is one of the core things. For instance, the Occupy movement, right? I interviewed a lot of those Occupy people in Oakland during the general strike, repeatedly over the, trying to get an understandable sentence from them about what they're protesting, why, and what their goal is. And why did that shit fizzle out? Why did nobody fucking give a shit? And by the way, I was completely on their side. I believe that, police need change, and many of the things that they all said to me were true and worthy of support and worthy of being reported. And I reported it over and over and over again, but there was no unifying message. They were not protesting one thing or 100 things. The bank's corrupt? Absolutely. Is the government in the pocket of the banks? Or the bank? Absolutely. All of these things are true and believable, and I think most people support it. But the problem they had was they weren't delivering their message in a clear way, in an understandable way. And I mean, not just through me. I realized that part of the protest in some way for these occupiers was, we don't need the mainstream or, this fucking bullshit term that I feel like, and it's not because I was part of it, it's because it's a stupid, somebody thought they're clever when they're inventing lamestream media. That is not a clever term at all. Mainstream media is good enough. And I get that you're trying to denigrate this mainstream media as though it's one thing, and frankly, I know better than that. It's not one thing. It's not. I've never been in the room with two media people who even fucking agree with each other, working for the same network or station or company or whatever it is. The mainstream media is one thing. I have my doubts about it for a million reasons, part of which because, I got fired by it. That's not a big part of it, actually. You'd be surprised at how little that factors in. But again, circling back to that original point, the occupiers didn't want the mainstream media reporting on them, or didn't care about the reporting on them because they felt like nobody would get it right because they think of it as one thing. And that's sort of unfair and untrue. But that aside, fine. If you don't need me, fine. Deliver your message in a clear way. What was the Occupy movement about? No one can say. And by the way, no one can say, and nobody gives a shit. Certainly not anymore. You don't see anybody protesting. And I think, frankly, if they were taking it seriously, we would still be seeing it, right? It would be continuing, whether it's the war, whether it's the U.S. being a policeman to the world, whether it's, all of these things that everybody has an opinion on, Guantanamo Bay or waterboarding or, the sameness of the political candidates. I'm not going to report on this ever on this show because fuck these, Clinton Bush cycles. I'm not an Obama bot. I like some of the things he's done because he's different, and that's one of the main things. But seeing Hillary Clinton again, I would love to see a woman in the president. I am fucking convinced beyond convinced that a female would make a better president than any goddamn retarded. Believe me, if there's one thing I know about, it's the human male. If there's one thing I know about, I've said before, I'm an expert in two things, the news media and Star Trek. Well, the human male, both the psychology and the physicality of it, is something I am something of a self-taught expert in. And women would be better leaders by far, but not Hillary Clinton. Good Lord God, no. Anyway, that kind of went far afield of where I was going. That happens sometimes. And I'm not high. That's what's interesting, is sometimes I sort of, circle around a train of thought that nobody could have predicted. And by the way, that is not on my rundown. And talking about any of that shit was not something I planned to do. We got about 10 minutes here. Passwords on TV. Let's talk about this for a second. How secure is your password? Everybody thinks they've got their system, right? I think we can all agree that probably Sheldon Cooper said it once in The Big Bang Theory. 1, 2, 3, 4 is not a secure password. And I think that's probably safe to say and true and agreeable. That said, the people who still have passwords kind of probably don't do a good job of, changing them regularly, of making them unhackable regularly. Sorry, I'm getting ads for the story I'm trying to bring up. And this is a bonus clip from John Oliver. I hesitate to kind of play this because I'm worried about the John Oliver shit getting me either muted or pulled offline, live or later on tape. I talked about this last week. Edward Snowden on the John Oliver show. Now, I've said John Oliver is not just a comedian. He's a journalist in any kind of modern, reasonable sense, just like I believe Penn and Teller were de facto journalists in the bullshit show. Yes, they're showmen. Yes, they're entertainers. But you know what? They work hard to produce a good show that's all the journalistic things. Clear, concise, complete. Be fair, be impartial, be imbalanced, all that. Be imbalanced? No, be balanced. But again, if you could talk about people deviating from the mainstream media and kind of disbelieving it for one reason or another anymore, there are places you can go for true analysis, I guess is the good word, right? I mean, and I think Penn and Teller did a great job when they were doing the bullshit show on Showtime. And I believe the greatest journalist America has to offer now is not an American. It's John Oliver on HBO. There are people who I've shared this clip with that were unfamiliar with the show, which shocks me because this show is so goddamn good. It's and part of it, I mean, yes, it's comedy. It's not like watching The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, though, which is partisan in its own way, but it's partisan kind of on my side, so I like it, and the angry conservative people don't like it, whatever the hell. This is truly journalistic. It is truly fair. They truly look at the sides of an issue, and by the way, that balance thing in journalism is kind of a illusion and mirage, if you will, because some stories don't have two sides. Some stories really only have one side. Some stories have 5 sides. That's an important thing oh, we're balanced. We got both sides of the issue, says Fox. Fuck you. You're absolutely not doing some stories justice because you got the people who disagree and the people who agree, and that's it. Like, that is just not doing a good job. Anyway, one of the things that this does is this Edward Snowden interview on John Oliver, it was relevant to you right now in a way you can understand. It was powerful. It was hilarious. Like, it was just solid fucking gold. If you haven't seen what I'm talking about, I cannot play it here. It'll get me shut down for damn sure. But here, this is a bonus clip from that same interview. And he's talking about our bad passwords. Watch Edward Snowden shame us over bad passwords. This is only 3 minutes long. Again, it's so good.
Why are passwords so important? Or why is it important that we have better ones than the ones that we do have? Because the ones that we do have are embarrassingly bad.
Bad passwords are one of the easiest ways to compromise a system. For somebody who has a very common 8-character password, it can literally take less than a second for a computer to go through the possibilities and pull that password out.
For an 8-character password?
Right.
My password is 5 characters. That's not a joke. That's bad, right?
That's really bad.
Okay, so which of these seem like good options? Password, spelt W-E-R-D.
This is a joke, right?
No. Yes.
That would be within the normal password dictionaries, permutations of common words.
But it's misspelled, though, so that was the kind of tripwire on it.
Right, it's still 8 characters, even if it's not within your password dictionary.
All right, so I'm going to pause it both for 2 reasons, one of which I'm trying to break it up so that it doesn't quite get caught as easily by the algorithms that detect, piracy, streaming, whatever. And also that you got to be kidding me. He's talking about permutations. He's like, yeah, but it's misspelled. That's a permutation, dude. All right, let's go on.
Okay. It's a bad one. That's why I got some more. 1, 2, 3, 4, but spelt out.
That's not going to help you.
Okay. Limp Bizkit Forever with Limp Bizkit spelled properly, but forever not.
That's also not going to help you.
Okay. Really?
I think the best advice here is to shift your thinking from pass words to pass phrases. Think about a common phrase that works for you that's too long to brute force, and also make them unlikely to be in the dictionary.
Admiral Alonso Ghost Penis 420 YOLO.
That's pretty good.
Right?
It's memorable too.
Right, it's memorable. It's got all the other things you like characters and numbers. YOLO capital letters, obviously. I shouldn't say, now I can't use it.
It can actually be a lot harder to remember a password that they tell you has to be 13 characters long or something like that. It has to have exclamation points. It has to have numbers. It has to have uppercase and lowercase letters and things like that than it is to remember a simple phrase like Margaret Thatcher is 110% sexy.
Wow. That is a password that not even a computer would guess. No, you're right.
In a million years.
Okay, I get it. I get how important it is. I fully understand that. The problem is, I'm not going to do it because it seems hard, even though I know it isn't.
You're killing me.
Sorry.
All right, so that's it. I mean, if that's not enough to entice you to go watch the full-on interview, nothing will. That is sort of a great little snippet of the interaction that they had. I loved Edward Snowden from seeing Citizen 4. And as I've said before, the problem with Citizen 4 isn't that it was, bad. I don't think Edward Snowden did anything bad. I think he's a fucking hero beyond hero to this country. In a very real sense, the people who say he's a traitor or whatever the hell, an espionage, a spy type guy, I think those people are misguided and stupid to the point of being embarrassing. And if you watch the Citizen 4 thing, the problem it has is digestibility, right? Ingestibility, digestibility. You have to be able to see it, understand it, and maybe use it to make a change or try and effect a change in your life. That's the only way any of us are going to, get anywhere. I watched it with my mom. My mom was a scientist for years and years, a molecular geneticist, could not wrap her brain around it. And it's not that, this is not a hacker movie. You know what I'm saying? This is not a movie about how to hack things or anything overly complicated. My hair is totally bothering me. I should look better than this on my birthday, shouldn't I? Anyway, so again, the John Oliver thing was ingestible and digestible in a very real way compared to Citizen 4, and that's kind of the thing I wanted to do there. Let's see here. I had other stories we could talk about. I'll save the rest of them for Nerd News Monday next week. By the way, we're coming up on my birthday here in the next couple of hours, my actual birth date. So lucky me. Like milestone birthdays aren't that good. But tomorrow, and I mean, it's going to be sort of a treat for myself because every day, if you didn't know this by now, every Tuesday here on cBAS After Dark is Game Show Tuesday, where I go fucking ape shit and introduce you to game shows that maybe I just got introduced to, or game shows that I've loved for many years, whatever it is. We're doing an episode of 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown like we did last week because holy fucking shit was that. By the way, it's also, I think, one of the more highly viewed, possibly the highest viewed episode of cBAS After Dark that I've done. And I usually go a little bit longer than an hour on Game Show Tuesday just because I'm having so much fucking fun I can't stop. We'll do some reruns. What I really want to focus on tomorrow for Game Show Tuesday, though, Game Show Pilots. The show that became Press Your Luck, I already kind of profiled in the Press Your Luck episode, which was like 2 weeks ago on Game Show Tuesday. But there's one of my game show sort of, you have Trekkie friends, you have, whatever, science friends, I have a couple of friends who are into game shows like me. And one of them brought to me the show that became the $25,000 Pyramid. It does not play, the game is not played like the $25,000 Pyramid. It is not similar to the game, but you can see similarities in the set and the way the game works kind of led to somebody thinking of the $25,000 Pyramid is a story I'm told. Also, what I'm going to do tomorrow is kind of an interesting thing, different from just watching game shows and yakking about it and laughing about it and stuff like that, which we'll do. Somebody has a website devoted to game show displays. All right, you're talking about nerd, cBAS and Nerd News Monday and all of this. The displays on game shows, right? When you bid $1,000 on The Price is Right, 1000 appears on that little board in front of you. When you're at the Showcase Showdown, or any other game show. The one I really like is from Password in the 50s. The black and white Password, the original Password with Alan Ludden, husband to Betty White, where it was not lights in a kind of egg carton format that could make any character of number that they wanted. This was actually like those flip around, those alarm clocks of the 70s that flipped, that displayed a different number, and it had all of the different numbers, and it would flip around every minute. It was like that, only it was sideways. This old game show that I'm talking about that led to the $25,000 pyramid had this kind of side flip around display, and boy, you look at it and it's like when it's at 9 and then they get $9 or something like that, it has to go through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like it has to go through them all in order to get to the next character. A whole website devoted to that shit? Are you serious? We won't spend a lot of time on it. It's not that big of a website, but the fact that anyone else is interested in that in the first place is, warms my cockles of my heart. But the fact that anybody devotes a website to it and writes about it and in depth and accepts contributions from other people and like has little freeze frames of the game with circles, they did so much work on this. And frankly, it answers some questions I had. So we'll look at that tomorrow. It is 11 o'clock on the west coast of the U.S. It's 0600 GMT. That's time to go. Wish me a happy birthday, everybody. Make it a happy Tuesday. We'll see you on Game Show Tuesday here on cBas After Dark.